Hello and welcome to another video. This video we're playing some Darkness Assassin. This video is going to be a little bit more different because I'm not going to be focusing as much on guarding, but rather control and damage. I can definitely do more damage and I can definitely do more control. I can take spike if I want to, or overload. However, this is just a clear situation and I take my chances. Typically when you're playing a tank, you really want to be mindful of who you're guarding. So the reason why I'm not guarding a lot in this match is because I'm solo queued. And I've never seen this healer before, so I don't really want to just guard them, especially since they don't really seem to have any dim, and I can't really judge somebody to do well just from that. And it also seems like they don't have augments, so I just chose not to, I guess, overstay my welcome by guarding somebody that may just get me killed. You do split 50% of the damage and then you have to mitigate the 50% of the damage. So I don't really want them to just stand in the middle and think that they're safe because they have guard, because that's basically just going to get me killed. This ends up being a pretty cleave heavy game, so I'm just like, yeah, I want to just focus on trying to do damage and do what I can. I do have a lethality operative. It's actually not really worth it for me to guard him most of the time because he will be arguably just as tanky as me or tankier than me. It's only when he's getting bursted that I want to bother guarding him, but for the most part he has nothing to worry about. But outside of that, guarding, yeah, you should definitely do it, especially if you run more mitigation than I do. I'm pretty much running all damage except for a shield, and sometimes I'll run the absorb relic over the, I believe the mastery one. Or it might be the power one, I think. Yeah, it's the power one, so I'll get rid of the power one for that. For the most part, I don't really find too much value in running that outside of arenas, and then when it comes to actual mitigation, I haven't had the pleasure to really sit there and play yet. Now, when it comes to rotation, like damage priority, if it's ever an AoE, it's discharge, and deafening bolts, and wither. Those are your three core abilities. Discharge, wither, and shock will increase the damage of your deafening bolts and make it uninterruptible. The whole way that you'll heal in this match is your AoE taunt and then deafening bolts, or taunt into pretty much anything, including deafening bolts. Since deafening bolts hits multiple times, it's going to do the percent heal multiple times. And if you AoE it with the AoE deafening bolts, you'll end up getting a lot of percent heal. And the same concept kind of goes for like lacerate and the AoE melee, like ability there. Was it severing something strike maybe? But that's the whole concept behind it. When it comes to debuffs on players, wither and discharge are a top priority. These things will debuff the enemies so they do less damage. When you have deflection up, your aura around you, so this purple aura that I have right now, will basically reduce their damage. So this is like an anti-cleave defensive. So normally you think, oh, if off it, get 50% defense chance. Well, that's not the only use for it. So when you're playing tank and there's cleave and there's a lot of people stacked up, you can use this and it'll basically neuter their cleave, which is great. However, this is not very effective against range cleave because it's an aura. You have to be around the players that you're trying to reduce damage for. Tie that with AoE taunt and just throwing an AoE depth volt, and you can pretty much mitigate a majority of the damage and heal through whatever damage they might throw at you. So when it comes to damage shutdown, Darkness is probably the best tank outside of Juggernaut. Juggernaut's a little bit more of a single person like focused, but also at the same time it's a way bigger bully. So if there's ever a situation where you just need to shut down one person or want to line things up a little bit better, so like APPT, Juggernaut's way better at dealing with that. You basically get the main benefit of a Sin tank is mostly just shutting down cleave. I run the long shroud, and I run the long shroud for a good reason. There's a lot of just indirect tank tunnel and just straight up blatant tape tunnel as well. And having the longer shroud just keeps your survivability up there. I take the reduced cooldown on recklessness, and I also take the talent that also gives me a mini recklessness proc, so I can do more damage, but also at the same time reduce the cooldown on my recklessness faster. So with that in mind, I'm getting recklessness up quite often, and that increases my durability. Therefore, I do more damage. So I'm getting both gains there. Now, if you're ever in a situation where you're actually playing mitigation or you're focused on mitigation or there's just more power in doing that instead, take the cooldown reduction on AoE taunt and you can get way more healing and get way more mitigation that way. However, your damage will suffer a little bit, but in some situations your damage is going to suffer no matter what, so it might be better to do that. And then you also have another challenge, or not challenge, but choice there for, I believe it's like specifically like force and tech, I think. So if there's a slam spammer, you can actually run a variant of your Dusk Ward, which is the ability that I have on F, to apply an accuracy buff. It's actually pretty good. However, it's just not really worth it for you as a tank unless you're specifically building around trying to mitigate cleave. However, one thing to keep in mind, if you're playing DPS, you're extremely squishy. Be very careful with your guard. AoE taunt is the main way that you're going to get damage, or not damage, but healing back with your AoE deafening bolts. And if you can't get that and you're forced to single target, you're really going to have to kind of like lock in with your single target rotation and kind of like your mobility to avoid situations where you can just get shut down. Storks are the bane of your existence, but so is pretty much any good DPS that can keep you at bay. Thankfully, this map right here is arguably probably one of the most fun and most enjoyable maps for a cleave, so playing against the darkness and that kind of knows how to deal with things, and playing a darkness and knows how to deal with things on this map, it's just far more enjoyable for like team combat. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more I could do if I wanted to be full on like mitigation tank and like protecting things. If you're going to go mitigation, by the way, you're not really focusing on defense chance. Defense chance just comes baseline, so you're looking for more of like a mix of your stats. So you're really thinking about getting shield chance so you can get more shield. And I believe on recklessness you get some free absorb. So you're kind of focusing on your shield chance and you'll ride on your recklessness absorb. So that'll allow you to actually be far more tanky. So if you do decide to go more of like a tank-like build, the relics are the #1 priority. So if you are going to go a tankier build, the relics will actually add a lot of survivability even if you don't change out all your damage. And having like a hybrid build is honestly not that bad. The biggest benefit you'll probably see is going higher HP stuff and getting more HP from your tank gear basically. So it does mean higher percent heals, and for the most part your healing will start going nuts because of that. Now when it comes to potentially swapping out tacticals, I really only look at Friend of the Force if, and that's only if, I find somebody that really needs it or has something that's very setup based and needs it. Otherwise, I think it's a relatively bad tactical, so don't really bother with that. And then 2 cloaks is also not too bad, especially for arena, but other than that, the long cloak is typically your best friend. Other than that, if you guys have any questions about darkness, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help.